Hello everyone, welcome to Drishti IAS. You're watching the Current Affairs Plus series wherein we discuss those topics that are making the headlines but are also important from a UPSC Prelims point of view, meaning the UPSC has asked questions from them in the previous year's Prelims papers. Today's topic of discussion is Lok Sabha Speaker. So let's first look at why the Lok Sabha Speaker is in the news. So, the opposition parties have moved the no confidence motion seeking the removal of Mr. Om Birla, the Lok Sabha Speaker, under Article 94C of the Indian Constitution. And this motion was presented by Mr. Gaurav Gogoi and has the backing of 118 MPs. So, let's look at various questions that have been asked from this topic. Question 93 from UPSC 2024 Prelims said, with reference to the Speaker of the Lok Sabha, consider the following statements. While any resolution for the removal of the Speaker of the Lok Sabha is under consideration, 1. He or she shall not preside. 2. He or she shall not have the right to speak. 3. He or she shall not be entitled to vote on the resolution in the first instance. Now we are discussing a resolution for the removal of the Speaker. So first things first, this provision is mentioned in Article 94C of the Indian Constitution. And in order to remove the Speaker of the Lok Sabha, a 14 days prior notice has to be given. How is the Speaker removed exactly? The Speaker is removed by the vote of an effective majority of the House, meaning a majority of the then membership of the House, total membership minus the number of vacancies. Now, while the resolution for the removal of Speaker is underway, let's see, he or she shall not preside. This is accurate. While such a motion or such a resolution is underway, the Speaker cannot preside in the House. The second statement says, he or she shall not have the right to speak. This is incorrect. Of course, the Speaker shall have the right to speak. Third statement says, he or she shall not be entitled to vote on the resolution in the first instance. Now, what does this statement mean? See, students, as the presiding officer of the House, the Speaker has the duty or the right or power, responsibility, however you want to put it, to a casting vote. Meaning, whenever there is a voting going on in the House, the Speaker does not vote in the first instance. But if there is a matter of tie, in the case of tie, the Speaker does cast his vote, and this is known as casting vote. However, when the resolution seeking the removal of the Speaker is underway, the Speaker, since he or she is not presiding over the House, loses this casting vote right, but can vote in the first place like another member of the House. So, when this says he shall not be entitled to vote on the resolution in the first instance, this is again inaccurate. He or she can vote in the first instance. Alright. So, with this, we arrive at the correct answer, which is option A, 1 only. UPSC Prelims 2022 also asked a question. With reference to Deputy Speaker of Lok Sabha, consider the following statements. 1. As per the rules of procedure and conduct of business in Lok Sabha, the election of Deputy Speaker shall be held on such date as the Speaker may fix. Now, if we speak about the election of Deputy Speaker, then Article 93 of the Indian Constitution talks about both the election of Speaker as well as the election of Deputy Speaker. But not a lot of other details have been mentioned. So when this statement says that as per the rules of procedure and conduct of business in Lok Sabha, election of Deputy Speaker shall be held on such a date as the Speaker may fix, this is actually accurate. Because this is where the Constitution stops. This is what the Constitution mentions and does not really get into minor detailing. So this statement is accurate. The Speaker decides the date for the election of the deputy speaker, whereas the date for the election of the speaker, students, is fixed by the president. The second statement says there is a mandatory provision that the election of a candidate as deputy speaker of Lok Sabha shall be from either the principal opposition party or the ruling party. Here again, the word mandatory should ring a lot of bells. First of all, the constitution is restricting itself to Article 93, mentioning the elections to both the offices. Now there is no such mandatory provision, and usually it is a parliamentary convention that the speaker is chosen from a ruling party, whereas the deputy speaker is usually chosen from a opposition party. Now again, this convention also began from the 11th Lok Sabha. Before that, both the offices of the speaker as well as the deputy speaker were filled from candidates of the ruling party. So this statement is inaccurate. When we look at this, we can simply remove two options. The third statement says the deputy speaker has the same power as of the speaker when presiding over the sitting of the house, and no appeal lies against his ruling. Now, as the deputy speaker presides over the house, in the absence of a speaker, he or she shall enjoy the same powers and privileges as the speaker does. And his rulings and decisions are also going to be binding on all members. Therefore, this statement is correct. Fourth says the well-established parliamentary practice regarding the appointment of deputy speaker is that the motion is moved by the speaker and duly seconded by the prime minister. Now, this is no such well-established practice. Usually, the motion for the election of the deputy speaker is either initiated by or moved by a member of the parliament or any other minister. The speaker would usually not move motions of this nature. And there is also no such rule that such a motion has to be seconded by the prime minister. So we can safely remove this statement. Here again, when we had 1 and 3 right, we could quickly arrive at the correct answer without even delving into statement 4. All right. So we have option A again as the correct answer. UPSC Prelims 2017 had asked a question. Consider the following statements. 1. In the election for Lok Sabha or State Assembly, the winning candidate must get at least 50% of the votes polled to be declared elected. Now, this statement is erroneous, students. In India, we follow the first past the post system, meaning any candidate with maximum number or the highest number of votes wins the elections. There is no provision of winning with a majority or with minimum 51% of votes. So this statement is inaccurate. The second statement says, according to the provisions laid down in the Constitution of India, in Lok Sabha, the Speaker's post goes to the majority party and the deputy speakers to the opposition. Here again, according to the provisions laid down in the Constitution of India, no such thing has been mentioned. The minor detailing has not been mentioned. Hence, this statement is inaccurate. It has become a convention since the 11th Lok Sabha that the post of the speaker goes to the ruling party, whereas the deputy speaker is elected from the principal opposition party. However, there is no such fixed rule in the Constitution. So, we see that both statements are incorrect, and therefore option D is the correct answer. Now, let's take a look about the office of the speaker. So, of course, Article 93 of the Constitution mentions the office of both the speaker as well as the deputy speaker and their elections. Now, each house of the parliament has a presiding officer, students. So, when we talk about Rajya Sabha, we have the chairman and the deputy chairman. Similarly, when we talk about the Lok Sabha, we have the speaker and the deputy Speaker. Now, what is the criteria of election? What is the eligibility for someone to be elected as the Lok Sabha Speaker? So let's first take a look at the history of the institutions of Speaker and the Deputy Speaker. The institutions of the Deputy Speaker as well as the Speaker originated in 1921 from the Government of India Act 1919, which is also known as the Montagu-Chelmsford reforms. And of course, at that point, the nomenclature was different. They were known as the President and the Deputy President until 1947. It was only after the Government of India Act of 1935 that the nomenclature was changed to Speaker and the Deputy Speaker. Now also, now that we are discussing the election as well as the removal of these offices, members from these offices, let's understand what is the minimum eligibility criteria. So when we talk about the election to the office of the Speaker, again, the Speaker should be, first of all, the member of the House. The Speaker has to be a member of the Lok Sabha. However, there are no other specific qualifications. How in case, though, it is always considered an asset that the Speaker has an adequate knowledge of the laws of the land along with the Constitution. So this, if the Speaker does have, it is an asset. Finally, usually, who is elected as the Speaker? A member of the ruling party. And how is he or she elected as a Speaker? It is done so through informal consultations with other parties and groups in the House. And this is done so that the Speaker enjoys the confidence as well as the respect of all members. Hence, there are widespread informal consultations before this post is decided upon. Now, how is the Speaker as well as the Deputy Speaker elected? Well, simple majority. Basically, all the members of the House, the Lok Sabha, participate, and a simple majority of the members present and voting wins the post of the Speaker. And this date is decided by the President, as I've mentioned earlier. Now, once the candidate is decided, then this name or this candidature is proposed by the Prime Minister or the Minister of Parliamentary Affairs. Again, the Speaker remains in office usually for 5 years till the Lok Sabha is dissolved and until the next Lok Sabha is elected. And also the Speaker is eligible for re-election. Now, there are certain roles and powers of the Speaker. For example, the Speaker is the final interpreter of the Constitution of India as well as the rules of procedure and conduct of business of the Lok Sabha, also of the parliamentary precedents. And again, the rulings are binding in nature. Secondly, of course, the Speaker of the Lok Sabha decides or presides over the joint sitting of both houses, which is invited or which is called upon by the President in case there is a deadlock between both the houses. Another function is that of the adjournment of sitting in the absence of quorum. Quorum is the minimum strength of the House that is required to conduct business for the day, and here it is 1/10. Again, we discussed the casting vote and of course money bill. We know very well that it is the Speaker who decides whether a bill is a money bill. Another important function of the Speaker, and we just discussed it in the last video, is pertaining to the anti-defection law, where the Speaker adjudicates the disqualification petitions of the defecting members. So this is another important function. And it is important to note that the decision of the Speaker is subject to judicial review. This is something that is very important. Now again, the Speaker acts as the ex officio chairman of the Indian Parliamentary Group, and this group is the link between the Indian Parliament as well as the other parliaments of the world. Again, another function is to constitute various committees, and the chairman of all parliamentary committees are nominated by the Speaker. And the Speaker is also the guardian of the privileges of the House. Now we talk about the removal of the Speaker. We have already discussed all the important factors. Of course, 94C is the article that deals with the removal of the Speaker. Removal happens in 3 cases. What are those 3 cases? If the Speaker ceases to be member of the House, that is condition number 1. If he resigns in writing to the Deputy Speaker, that is condition number 3. Or again, if a resolution or motion for his removal is sought by the House, by the members of the House, then of course the Speaker will have to vacate his or her post. So these are the 3 things, and we have already discussed the process for removal in the previous year's question. Of course, we also discussed about the 14 days advance notice. Now, when we talk about the Deputy Speaker is also elected from the Lok Sabha, from amongst its members. The date of election is fixed by the Speaker. The date of election of the Speaker is fixed by the President. Again, we have discussed the convention, and finally, of course, the Deputy Speaker also remains in office for a period of 5 years. Now, again, the Deputy Speaker may also vacate his or her office for exactly the 3 cases that we discussed for a Speaker, and the process of removal remains the same because you will remove the Deputy Speaker as a presiding officer. Now, again, 14 days advance notice. It is important to note that the Deputy Speaker does not report to the Speaker. He is responsible to the House itself. And when the Speaker's office is vacant or when the Speaker is absent, then the Deputy Speaker performs the same functions and assumes all the powers of a Speaker. And again, the rulings of the Deputy Speaker when presiding as a Speaker are binding on all the members. So again, the Deputy Speaker also has the privilege of casting vote in case of a tie. But the Deputy Speaker has one special privilege, that whenever he or she is appointed a member of any parliamentary committee, he or she assumes chairmanship by default, by design. So that is one important thing that one must remember about the office of the Deputy Speaker. Now, another important thing or another important concept to know is that of Speaker pro tem. Now, pro tem is a short for pro tempore. Pro tempore, basically, as the word may suggest, it means a temporary speaker. When does this happen? When the old Lok Sabha has dissolved and the newly elected Lok Sabha has to conduct its first meeting, then usually the senior most member is selected as a pro tem or a temporary speaker, and the president himself administers oath to this pro tem speaker. What is the main responsibility of the pro tem speaker? To administer oaths to all the new members and to enable the House to elect the new speaker. Now, once the new speaker is elected, the office of the pro tem speaker is no more existent. So students, that was all for today's video. So with this, we arrive at the conclusion of today's video. I've also brought to you a practice question. If you do like today's session, please hit the like, subscribe and share button as well as that bell icon. Also send me your answers of this question in the comments section. Thanks for watching.
For more informative content, like, share and subscribe, and do not forget to press the bell icon to get the notifications.